Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. It is Derby week. It is Wednesday of Derby week. We are thrilled to be here to talk all things North London Derby, of course, Spurs, first and foremost. With me is one of my greatest friends, Dakota J. Booth at Dakota J. Booth. Mac Dak to me. What's up, man?
Just feeling the nerves already starting to bundle up in my stomach, as I'm sure most people are. I also had to clear my browser history after leading up to this because I don't want to be getting a bunch of Arsenal fan page recommendations on my socials. So
Correct.
hopefully that pays off. If not, I'll have a new username next week.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Yeah, it's the week to clear all the browsers and rid yourself of all things Arsenal. Of course, it's the big one. Of course, and first and foremost, before we get into anything, I want to take a second, if you're watching on YouTube, to shout out this wonderful, wonderful hat that I'm wearing. It is a golf hat in the Titleist script, but it says Tottenham, a beautiful product from our good friend at Digital Spurs. Danny is a good friend of the podcast, and we always want to do everything we can to direct people to Danny's shop. Digital Spurs on all social media. You'll have the link. Dakota, I know you're rocking something as well, right?
Yeah, I've got the old retro kit inspired from the good old Holston days on the cap. I don't think Danny has a cease and desist for this yet, so go get it while you can.
Yep.
And yeah, I've worn it out a couple times here in the fine city of Portland, and I've gotten a couple coys shouted out at me. So
Let's go.
it's a good way to rep your squad without necessarily giving money to the machine, which we all can appreciate.
No doubt. Yeah, well said. Well said. For sure. Everybody get out there and check out the shop. You can shop and peruse away and see all kinds of stuff. T-shirts, hats, you name it, right? Mugs, that kind of stuff. It's all out there. So check out the shop and all the work that Danny does over at Digital Spurs. Let's jump into it. We've said it a bunch of times. It's Derby week. The first thing that we'll get into, we'll look across North London, or actually we'll look down to South London, down to Woolwich.
Yeah.
Um, some big names missing. Dakota Rice is out suspended. Calafori's out injured. Marino is out injured, and we know he's a little bit newer to the setup, as is Calafori. Most importantly for me, the biggest miss, Odegaard's also out injured, and he pulls the strings for Arsenal. You and I talked a little bit off the air about the need for Tottenham to still bring it. We cannot take anything
Mhm.
lightly, regardless of what Arsenal is missing. But before we get to all of that, let's talk about these four names that are missing, and more so probably Rice and Odegaard, right? What's that going to do to Arsenal, in your opinion?
Yeah, those are the big ones. I think I've also heard that Tomiyasu and Kieran Tierney are both out also. So
Interesting.
maybe some fun on the wings for our wingers who definitely need a big game. They need to show what they're
Yep.
capable of here. But I've heard Odegaard's kind of touch and go. Maybe this will be a thing where we think he's out, but then he's actually playing, kind of like we thought a couple of our players would be playing last time out, and they ended up not being available. So, yeah, I think obviously Declan Rice, I think, is probably the biggest miss for them. He has, plays his defensive midfielder role, but it seems like they also run a lot of the play through him and Odegaard specifically. So, and he's also come up with a lot of goals for them, especially towards the end of games. So, not having that uh, danger man on the pitch is only going to be good for us. But I have said to a few friends that I feel like Spurs have a tendency to play down to their opponent,
Yeah.
and I don't want this to be a situation of that where if all of these guys are missing, like oh they've got kind of a B team out there, we can kind of take it easy and not play as hard. This is not the game for that at all. This is a statement game. This is one where you go out, you show what you're capable of. You put the balls in the net that didn't find their way in against Leicester or Newcastle, and you put it away early. And hopefully, if those guys are missing, specifically Declan Rice, then hopefully our midfield can show really what they're capable of, and our forwards can do what we need them to do, which is score goals.
Yeah, completely agree. I think unfortunately where we're at as two clubs is that at our best we're still far off of their best, right? And just because they've knocked down a couple of pegs with some missing players, it doesn't mean that they can be taken lightly. So we'll need to be really good. Form and all of that also goes out the window anytime it's a derby. We know
Yep.
this, right? And I think it's still a little early in the season to have any concept of what form true and well and truly looks like, but I'd be willing to bet that they're going to carry stronger form right now than Spurs are if you look back to last season. So yeah, doesn't matter that they're missing these guys. It's going to be really important for Spurs to come out strong. On the Spurs side, do we know is Solanke back?
I would imagine with the international break, everybody would be available, but who knows? At this point, we thought everybody would be available for the last match, and that didn't necessarily turn out to be the case. So I
Yeah.
think it's very, very important at the very least that Mickey Van de Ven is healthy,
Yes.
because to play the way that we do with the high line, we need his pace. His pace is the game changer. It's kind of the key to everything that we want to do defensively. And guys like Gabriel Martinelli are pacey, and we're gonna need that pace with Mickey Van de Ven to match that and to cut out some of these undoubtedly counterattacks that we are gonna see. The last couple times that we've played them, the only two times we've played them while Ange has been coach, we've had the majority of the ball. We've dominated possession. It's been mostly in their half. They've killed us on counterattacks and from silly mistakes that we've made. So Mickey Van de Ven, I think, is kind of the key for us to have an opportunity to really play the way that we want, and for it to be a successful match day for Spurs.
Yeah, Van de Ven's a great shout. I think even with our back line, our top back line, obviously Van de Ven, Romero, Porro, and Udogi, I don't see us putting up a clean sheet against this team. And if we're missing Van de Ven, I don't want to think about what that looks like, right? I think if that top back line at its best, we concede at least one goal to Arsenal, and that's just based on the way that we play. And Arsenal's a very, very good team who, as you said, countered well against us historically over the past couple of seasons, especially last year with Ange, and will be primed to do it. Saka, you already mentioned Martinelli. They've added Raheem Sterling on loan, who's extremely pacey, and has played against Spurs and done fairly well for years. So yeah, we've got a lot that we're up against, and then I look at the fact that we're having a tough time with our finishing, and they're a defensive machine as well. So it's going to have to be a perfect day for us to get anything out of this match, in my opinion, and a perfect day can't be perfect without Mickey Van de Ven. So I completely agree with you.
For sure.
Yeah, what do you think the midfield looks like?
That's what I was just about to ask you. We've seen a few different kind of iterations of this midfield. Seems like everybody will be available. I know Yves Bissouma went off early in his match, his last international match, but seems like it was strictly precaution. Got his foot stepped on. Anyone who's played football knows that doesn't feel good, and he was probably happy to come off and not having to try to run that one off.
Yeah.
So yeah, the midfield I think is very, very interesting. If we are going to kind of look to take advantage of this and find the space in the midfield with no Declan Rice there, I would not be surprised at all to see an Yves Bissouma, Dan Kulusevski, James Maddison midfield. And that is very, very, very attacking. But it might be the move if we're going to see a weakened Arsenal trotted out there on Sunday.
Yeah, I completely agree with Madison and Kulusevski as those dual 8-10s, right? It's kind of what we started to call them. The dueling pianos is what keeps coming to my mind.
Yeah.
But if we can get Madison and Kulusevski in there, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially as you said, missing Rice. I would prefer Bentaker to Yves Bissouma. It almost feels like I'm just taking a chance to take a shot or pick on Yves Bissouma because I tend to do that. But I think one of his biggest issues is that I think his consistency tells me that he might not have made the adjustment to being, at Brighton, he was definitely a big fish in a small pond and would have been one of the first names on the team sheet. And it's easier to be confident when you're in that situation, right? And then you make the move to Spurs in a big six and you're playing in Europe and all of that. And you're no longer the big fish. And so I think sometimes his confidence shows that that could be the case. And I think in this match, I think Bentaker is just much more mentally prepared for the magnitude of a North London derby than Aniv Basuma is, and that's the main reason why I would go Bentaker. He's a big game player, always pops up big against City, always pops up big against Arsenal, and plays for one of the greatest international teams in the world in Uruguay right now. So yeah, I'd go Bentaker, but Ange knows best, right? So whatever it is, I'll be happy to support that midfield, but I'm really hoping for Bentaker or sorry, Madison Kulusevski as those dual A10s. I think that's the move for sure.
Yeah, and I wonder too if there is going to be any space or freedom late in the game for a Lucas Bergvall to really make his mark. Maybe he comes in for
Yeah,
Kulusevski for the final 15 minutes, and that midfield has been chasing down those two guys all game long, not able to get past an Ibasuma or Rodrigo Bentancur, and now there's tired legs with a very, very talented teenager kind of running at them, and maybe where Arsenal is missing their Scandinavian talisman, maybe ours has something up his sleeve for his first North London derby.
I like it, man. Yeah, I'd love to see Bergvall make an impact. Um, like to see Archie Gray make an impact. I'm not quite sure this is the match for it, but I think it's a match for Bergvall for sure. Yeah, then we look up top, and I'll just come out and say right away, if there's no Solanke or at least Richarlison, I think we're in big trouble. So I'm really hoping that Solanke's up the middle and Sonny on the left, and then I think the right, which I'm sure you agree with, and I think the conversation, if we presume or assume that one of either Solanke or Richarlison's fit, then I think that the conversation really only falls to who's on the right side.
Yep.
Obviously, Brennan Johnson's name will be mentioned. Odebear's name will be mentioned. There's even a Timo Werner who will be available. He's more of a left-sided player, but I think that'll be the big question. Again, we'll roll the dice and assume that it's either Solanke or Richarlison up the middle with Sonny out on the left. But who's on the right side for you?
I've been really, really impressed with Wilson Odebear, his first couple of matches. However, I will say if Dominic Solanke is up top, I think it makes too much sense to put Brennan Johnson out there. He is so good at getting by and sending in a low cross.
Yeah.
And with Pedro Porro whipping in the headed crosses, there's going to be space for Brennan Johnson to get behind this line, I think. And it almost feels to me we had Dominic Solanke in mind because of the way that Brennan Johnson plays and what he offers. We need someone to finish those chances that Brennan Johnson creates. So if you're going to have the main man up top in Dominic Solanke, put the guy who perfectly complements him out on the right-hand side. I think, too, it would go a really long way for Brennan Johnson's confidence to see some of these chances find the back of the net.
Yeah.
Because he's been creating them. We just haven't been putting them away. So I would love to see him kind of have not necessarily a revenge game. We're 4 games into the season, so a little too early for that. But we'll call it a statement game for sure from Brennan Johnson. That he is worth his salt. He is worth the money we paid for him, and it's not an easy task to knock him off of that right-hand sided winger spot.
Yeah, I love it, man. I look back to Newcastle. Brennan obviously was a sub in that game, right? But he came on and made a big impact, created 3 or 4 chances. Excuse me. Created 3 or 4 chances that should have been put away by a striker if they were in the right position. And Sonny was up the middle, and I'll never beat down Sonny, right? But there was just a few times where he made the wrong run in the box, in my opinion, and it was evident that Johnson was a little bit frustrated. So I agree that Solanke fixes that problem. Even a Richarlison, I think both of them would be effective in this match, right? We're gonna have to end up relying on, as you already mentioned, balls into the box at some point, right? We hold the ball and recycle it around their final third quite well, but beyond that, we haven't done much this season, right? Other than just hold on to the ball and do just very little with it. So yeah, either one of them will be super important when it comes to not only just finishing, like you said, Johnson's chances, but getting heads on balls is going to be really important. So I'm really hoping that one of them is fit, and I think we have every reason to think at least Richarlison's ready to go, if not Solanke as well. So, yeah, time will tell. I also think there's somewhat of a conversation around the tactical approach that we could see in this game. I think we've been reading our lineups or projecting our lineups as if we're going pretty standard as far as an Ange plan when it comes to tactics. But I think about last year when we played City in the second to last match, and our tactics were adjusted quite heavily. I think we were not as high with our line, right? But I think we were using Decky as a false nine in that game, if I recall. And we were just much more careful with the choices that we were making, right? And I think it did pay off. So, I mean, I hate to put Arsenal in the same light as City, but again, they're extremely good. And as much as I have no respect for them as an organization, I have to give them their flowers in the sense that they're a very good footballing side. So, is there any any worth to asking the question? Could we adjust our tactics somewhat for this match?
I'm gonna say no, and I,
Yeah,
I I think it is maybe equal parts hatred for them and wanting us to see see that us put, as Todd would say, put our foot on their neck from minute one, and half it's worked. It was a
yeah,
2-2 draw first time we played
yeah.
them last season. 3-2, 3-2 loss at home with an unlucky PH own goal, and then a goal ruled out from Mickey Van de Ven for who knows what reason. That really kind of shaped that game from inside of the first 20 minutes. So
Hmm.
we doubled their XG in that game. I know you love hearing about XG, but we kind of went out there and we were all over them. And of course, like you said, the way we play, we're going to give up goals, but we created the chances to win. So I see no reason to change the way that we're playing. I think we go out there from minute one, let them know what we're all about, that we're here to play, that North London is lily white, and that starts from this moment and for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, let's go, man. I completely agree with you. I think, first of all, the fans will be insufferable if we don't take it to Arsenal and we don't
Yeah.
play beautiful football in the Tottenham way. We've had we've been having that conversation for 4 years. So let's make sure that we don't have to revisit that
Mhm.
and just take it straight to Arsenal. But I agree. And again, we've talked about it. Form goes out the window. Even level of quality goes out the window, I think, in a match like this, because we all know that 80% of being a professional athlete is the attitude and mentality that you bring to a match. And there's going to be plenty of that in this match. There's never a shortage of reasons to be super dialed in and amped up and ready to go in this match. So yeah, it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be high flying. I expect numerous goals from both sides, if I'm honest, and we'll get to predictions here in a little bit. But yeah, let's jump back to Arsenal briefly before we wrap up. Again, we've already gone over some names that they're missing, but who are you focusing on in terms of who we need to be really building our defensive game plan around?
Yeah, the answer to that has to be Saka, has to be Bukayo Saka. He's their best player, I think, kind of by far at the moment. Um, but man, has that guy put some minutes in his legs the last
Yeah,
couple of years? And
yeah,
I don't wish an injury on him, but I do wish that Mikel Arteta was a little bit more careful with him because one is coming. It's got to be.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
got to be on the way. I think the limping off at 80 minutes every time he gets subbed is a bit for play. I think he's just tired.
Hmm.
I don't think he's actually limping, but for the sake of the game, I don't want to see Bukayo Saka get an injury. So uh, until that happens, because it will, if Arteta keeps playing him as much as he is, he's got to be the guy that everyone's eyes are on, that you
Yeah,
focus on, that you game plan around, and that is going to mean that we're going to have to see a good game from Destiny Udagi for,
big game.
dare I say it, the first time this season.
Yeah, Big game for him.
He's gonna have to have his head on straight. He's gonna have to play a good game, or we will be in trouble because Saka will really take it to him and make us pay
Yep,
if that's the case.
totally, man. Destiny and Pedro Porro both, for that matter, are really going to have to make sure that they don't switch off for a second. That's all it's going to take for us to concede is honestly one single second, fractions of seconds, right? In this case, not only because of their talent, but because of just the absolutely insane way that we play football in the attacking third, which I love. But yeah, it's going to be really important for those two to be super tight and locked in and make sure there's no missteps. I'm interested to see what their creativity through the middle looks like, though. Odegaard has been just lights out for 2 seasons for them. Um, Again, it's hard to say as a Spurs fan, but easily one of the top 3 players in the league for me the last 2 seasons, right? And just been phenomenal. Not only with his play, but his mentality and his leadership is immense. And he's their captain, and he'll be missing. So I do have questions about, again, what their creativity looks like. I don't necessarily think they have a like for like when it comes to Odegaard at their disposal, and they're deep. But I think it will give us a good opportunity to potentially win the midfield battle, knowing that him and Declan Rice are both out. And when we talk, again, I think I go back to Bentaker for that reason. I think he's just got that oomph and that grit to make sure that the midfield battle is won. And he's not as technical as Basuma. He's close. I think Bentaker is quite technical, but that may not be as much of what we're looking for. I think about Sarr. I just haven't seen. I shouldn't say that. I think he's been okay. I think in the 4-1 when he came on and did well, but I don't think he's been at his best like we've seen him in past. And I'd be a little bit concerned about giving him a go. But maybe there's some value in just the ground that he covers and the energy that he brings when it comes to winning that midfield battle. But if we can win the midfield battle, and it's so easy to say this in soccer, right? But if we can do that, we've got a shot at winning this match, right? I think that's the area where I personally think we need to focus as much of our attention on as possible to set ourselves up for success in that midfield, and then we see what happens from there.
Yeah, interesting point about Sarr. I think his biggest value comes from his bravery. That man
Yeah,
will shoot the ball
yeah,
regardless of where he is on the pitch if he's
yeah,
got an open spot. And I would love to see that more from our forwards or James
yeah,
Madison for that matter.
yeah.
Take a chance, especially David Raya in goal. He's not the tallest. He doesn't have the longest arms. Just try to put it top ends. Just see what happens.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Sarr starts. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't. You never quite know what's going to come out in that midfield right now, especially with this newfound depth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can hope for the best. Again, I think we have to be realistic as we approach this match. Like you said earlier, it's going to be really important for the squad to not play down to the moment, knowing that they have some key players missing. Right, it really doesn't matter in this match. For those listening, in the matches Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. Last week, Dakota and I did not, or 2 weeks back rather, did not give people the correct date until about halfway through the show. So we make sure we double and triple check, guys. It's Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern. If you have an OSC close by, find it. This will be a great time to go watch with other fans. Maybe have a beer if that's your thing, right? But a cup of coffee, good breakfast, whatever it is. Go find some Spurs fans and watch this one with them. We'll either be celebrating together or we'll be comforting one another, and it's a good match to have those two options in front of you. I hate doing this for a North London Derby, man, but let's get into quick predictions. What do you think happens on Sunday?
Yeah. So we've talked about being realistic and having all these things in mind. I'm gonna throw all of that out the window. And my 32nd birthday is on Monday, the day after. So Spurs are gonna congratulate me, welcome me into that year with a 3-2 victory.
Let's go. And it's at home. That never hurts, right? 3-2 victory. I like it. Oh, man, I'm gonna go with my head this time. I think a 2-2 draw, which I'm okay with. Um, Maybe my heart's pulling a little bit because my head could also see us taking a 3-2 loss, but I feel like we're going to draw 2-2, and I think we're going to have to fight pretty hard for that point. But at this point in the season, where they are not only in the season but in the span of the project, right, that they're engaged
Yeah.
in, we know they're good, and it pains me to say, but I'll take a draw at home to Arsenal right now. So I'm going to go 2-2. Not even going to predict where the goal's from because I don't give a shit. Just somebody score twice, please. Maybe
Yeah.
score a third time. I'd welcome that. But yeah, you heard it here. We've got one of us saying the Spurs are going to get the dub. One of us saying we'll get a point. Either way, we're not coming out with nothing, right? If Dakota and I are clairvoyant enough here. Again, make sure you all tune in 9 a.m. Eastern Sunday morning at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tune into the Tottenham Depot on YouTube. Like, subscribe, all of that. If you have and you're watching this on video, you'll get to see some of the digital Spurs merchandise that we mentioned earlier. But most of all, you're just going to get to see the faces behind the voices over here at the Tottenham Depot. So again, like and subscribe. It really helps us grow the product and continue to develop and elevate our product, we should say. And then, of course, follow us on all socials. You can find us at Tottenham Depot across all social media platforms, including Blue Sky now, I do believe. We're over there, so make sure you give us a follow, Threads, all of that. You can find me at Scott G. Bird. You can find Dakota at Dakota J. Booth. For all of you who have been with us for the last half hour, we appreciate you. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Boys.